Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Pure Ambition podcast. I'm your host, Dom Fusco, and today I felt called to share 7 books that I think everybody should read in their 20s. So, there were a lot to choose from. I'm sitting here in my house in Austin, Texas, trying to figure out which were I started with 3, and then I was like, wow, I think there should be 5. And then I was like, oh, you know what? There should really be 7. I also love the number 7, so we're going to go with 7. And I'm not going to do a deep dive into each one of the books. I'll kind of just give like a little high-level overview of what the book is, predicated on and, kind of my biggest takeaway. I don't want to spoil anything for you guys. I want you to go out and read them yourselves. Also, caveat to this is knowledge means nothing without action. So I used to procrastinate by just reading and consuming and consuming and consuming. But if you're not actually putting that knowledge that you're taking into action, it's useless. That knowledge is useless. So I am going to start with number 1, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And it's been sold more than 20 million copies, which is absolutely amazing. Viktor Frankl was born in Vienna, Austria in 1905, and he was a Holocaust survivor, and he was a psychotherapist. And so basically the whole book was written in Auschwitz and his experience, kind of just helping other people find meaning and find purpose in such a dark time. So, Man's Search for Meaning, I read it for the first time in college. It was recommended by a professor during one of my first year seminar course, actually. And it really has changed my life. I've read it like 3 times by now. So, number 1, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Number 2 is The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. This is a short one. It's like 140 pages, so you can crank through it pretty quickly. It's a small book. Pages are pretty short. This one is basically all about, you can imagine, 4 agreements. 4 agreements that we should all be living by, and if you can live with the mindset of these 4 agreements and apply them to your life, such as I have, it's completely changed my outlook and my perspective on life, how I live my life, how I go about my days, how I interact with people, and ultimately just my perspective on life as a whole. So, number 2, The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. Cannot recommend this one enough. Okay, moving along here. Number 3. I wasn't going to throw this one in there, but I did, just because when I really reflect, I literally put it back into my little bookcase here. But after I really thought about it, I was like, you know what? That book had a profound impact on me. And that is Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And it's kind of like the first book that everybody recommends, when you're first getting into personal finance. And it really did make me think about I read it in college again, and it kind of made me think about the trajectory that I was going on in life, and made me realize that, just going and working a 9-to-5 job and having cash in and cash out, and, you get a raise, but then how much you spend also raises. So it's kind of just talking about how to build wealth for yourself and, put your money into assets rather than just taking it and just purchasing things like liabilities, things that aren't going to give you a return on your investment. So really just changed my framework around how I see money and building a strong financial foundation for myself. So number 3, Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. Okay. Number 4, The Almanac of Naval Ravikant. And it was not written by Naval Ravikant. It was written by Eric Jorgensen. And so The Almanac is another short book. It's like 200-ish pages, but it's really easy to consume content. And Naval Ravikant is he's kind of like a mysterious. He's kind of like an enigma. He's only ever been on like one podcast, and it's like Joe Rogan. So go check that one out if you haven't. And Naval has been in the tech space, so he's helped, he's invested in and helped build a lot of tech companies, and that's not what it's about. The whole idea of this is really just thinking about like, so it's titled A Guide to Wealth and Happiness, right? And like, what do we all want in life? We want wealth, health, and happiness. And this is kind of just like a wake-up call to think about like how you're spending your days, how you're spending your time, how you're prioritizing the things in your life to ultimately find joy and find peace and find happiness in life, and talks about the things that are most likely causing you not to feel those things, and how you can kind of build those things for yourself, and how you can find health, wealth, and happiness, and his strategies for that. So this one, again, this is one that I'll probably read every single year for the rest of my life. It was recommended to me by a friend, CJ Finley. So thank you, CJ. I read it last year. I have not read it again this year, but I'm about to go on a trip, so I'm bringing it with me. And we're going to read that one again. So number 4 is The Almanac of Naval Ravikant by Eric Jorgensen. And the foreword was written by Tim Ferriss, which I'm sure all you guys know, or most of you guys know who Tim Ferriss is. Okay, moving on. Number 5 is The Second Mountain by David Brooks. This was, again, recommended to me by the same professor who recommended Man's Search for Meaning. And it had a profound impact on me. And David Brooks is New York Times bestselling author. He wrote The Road to Character. And basically what The Second Mountain talks about is we have these things in life that we are pursuing, the house, the money, the car, the fame, the whatever else it is. And then once we reach it, we kind of feel empty. And then it's like, okay, well, what's next? How do we actually find that joy and fulfillment in life? What are the things that I actually want to pursue that fulfill me, that make me happy? And this book really had a profound impact. So, it talks about, again, like your health, your happiness, your relationships, a whole bunch of other things that were deeply moving for me. So I think every single person in their 20s and just in their life in general should read this book. So book number 5 is The Second Mountain by David Brooks. Okay, number 6, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Been around for 80 years. There's a reason why it's one of the most popular books in history and why it's recommended by so many different people. And each chapter kind of talks about like a principle that you can apply, and it shares like detailed stories from Dale Carnegie and his time teaching the course on how to win friends and influence people. It's not just a business book, but it's really just a book on how to treat people right and ultimately become a more likable person where you're able to spread more love and abundance into the world. And isn't that what we all want? So number 6, again, another book that I like. If I had to pick 7, these are probably the 7 that I would read over and over again, but this was one of the first ones I grabbed. So number 6, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And then number 7, drum roll. Okay, number 7, Atomic Habits. You guys probably expected this one. Atomic Habits is amazing. It's one that I frequently just pick up, and I'll just pick up a random page and I'll start reading it, and it'll be like, oh yeah, I haven't been applying this to my life. It is all about building healthy habits that are practical, that are sustainable, that are going to put you on the path and trajectory that you want in life. So whether you're trying to get healthier, whether you're trying to build better relationships, whether you're trying to grow your business, whatever you're trying to accomplish in life, it basically gives you steps that are practical that you can go and you can implement into your life that are going to make these things a reality. Like for me, one of the biggest things in this was like how to create an environment for yourself that makes accomplishing these tasks and sticking to these habits sustainable. And it's a New York Times best-selling author, or it's a New York Times bestseller for a reason. I believe everybody in their 20s should read this book along with the other 6. Again, knowledge is nothing without action. So if you just read these books and you don't ever put anything into practice, it doesn't really matter. But these are the 7 books that I think everybody in their 20s should read. They've had a very, very big impact on me in my life. There's a lot more that I could have shared, but when I really looked at it, these were the 7 that I constantly come back to whenever I need a reminder or whenever I am trying to implement something into my life and really just see growth. So if you found value in this, share it with a friend, share it with a family member, share it with somebody who you think would find value in it. Helps us reach more people so that we can create greater impact. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.